Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a deep dive guide from Stag Vape to decode and, honestly, cure a super frustrating phenomenon. If you vape, you've almost certainly run into this. And hey, if you haven't yet, you are definitely going to want to know the science behind what's actually happening to your body when it eventually hits.
All right, picture this. You've just filled up your tank, or maybe you grabbed a brand new device with your absolute all-time favorite e-liquid. You take a long, satisfying draw, expecting that familiar burst of flavor, and nothing. Literally nothing. It's incredibly jarring, right? You immediately think, okay, my device is broken or this juice went bad. But as we'll see, more often than not, the culprit is actually your own sensory system.
The good news here, this sudden flavor loss is almost never permanent. In today's explainer, we're going to cover what exactly Vapor's tongue is, the underlying science of flavor, common causes, how to tell if it's your hardware or your body, 9 fast and effective cures, and finally, when it's time to actually go see a doctor. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1. What exactly is Vapor's tongue?
Well, it really comes down to a specific physiological condition called olfactory fatigue. What this brilliantly illustrates is that the flavor hasn't actually disappeared from your liquid at all. Nope, your brain has simply decided to tune it out. You see, your body is incredibly efficient, and when it gets constantly bombarded by the exact same sensory input, it essentially flips a switch, just to prevent sensory overload. It's a classic form of sensory adaptation.
Moving on to Section 2, the science of flavor. We really need to understand how taste and smell are linked together.
Now you might think tasting happens entirely in your mouth, right? I mean, it makes sense. But while your mouth does have anywhere between 2 to 10,000 taste buds, scientifically called gustatory calculi, which handle your basic sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, a massive 70% of what you perceive as complex flavor actually comes from your nose. So when you exhale vapor, those molecules are stimulating your olfactory receptors. If that nasal connection gets blocked or just fatigued, boom, you lose the vast majority of your flavor profile instantly.
But here's the wild part. It isn't just biology. It is heavily psychological. Our expectations can literally alter how we taste things. For example, there was this famous blind taste test where participants actually preferred Pepsi over Coke. But when the brands were revealed beforehand, the preferences completely flipped 4-1 for Coke. Even wilder, British illusionist Darren Brown once opened an empty bottle, told an audience they would smell mint, and a bunch of people physically registered a phantom mint smell. The big takeaway? High stress, boredom, or just your general mental state can make a beloved flavor suddenly taste incredibly bland out of nowhere.
All right, Section 3. Let's look at the common causes of flavor loss, breaking down the actual triggers.
First up, we have behavioral triggers. Vaping the exact same all-day flavor constantly is hands down the #1 cause. Think about it like a strong cologne or perfume. You know how after a few minutes of spraying it on, you just completely stop smelling it? Your brain ignores it. Well, the exact same thing happens with your vape. Also, if you're dual using, meaning you're smoking cigarettes and vaping, or maybe you just recently quit smoking, that lingering tar and those chemicals severely suppress your receptors. Actually, scratch that. Suppress is an understatement. They nuke them. It can take up to a full month for your palate to recover from tobacco smoke. Add in high stress, which causes mouth breathing and acid reflux, and yeah, your flavor perception drops to 0. Then we have the biological triggers. The primary base ingredients in e-liquid, propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin, are hygroscopic. This means they literally attract and bind to water molecules, pulling moisture directly out of your mouth and throat. And without saliva to dissolve those flavor molecules, you literally can't taste them. On top of that, your taste buds regenerate every 10 to 14 days. So if you happen to burn your tongue on hot coffee or eat some ridiculously spicy food, you're temporarily destroying those receptors. Throw in some basic nasal congestion from a cold, or maybe dry mouth from anxiety or allergy meds, and your senses are just completely blocked.
Okay, Section 4, hardware versus your body. Before we try to fix anything, we need to diagnose where the problem actually is.
Let's run through a really quick diagnostic checklist. If you eat a meal and the food itself tastes muted, and your vape tastes like plain warm air, but your device's cotton wick looks clean and white, yep, you have true Vapor's tongue. However, if your regular food tastes perfectly normal, but your vape tastes excessively sweet or maybe slightly burnt, and you look down and see this dark brown or black gooey residue on your coil, good news, you don't have Vapor's tongue. You just have coil gunk. The sweeteners in your liquid have caramelized and essentially ruined the heating element. Just change your coil and you're good to go.
Section 5. 9 fast and effective cures to reset those senses.
So if it is your body and not your hardware, we start with some basic vaping adjustments.
You absolutely need to give your specific sweet-sensing receptors a much-needed break. Try drastically switching up your flavor category. If you're always vaping strawberry, switch it up to a robust coffee, or maybe a tart citrus. Even better, try vaping completely unflavored e-liquid for a few days. I know it sounds boring, but it gives your olfactory system a total rest while still allowing you to vape. Oh, and of course, try spacing out your sessions a bit more so you aren't just constantly bombarding your nose with aroma molecules.
Now, if you want a quick fix, this is a brilliant hack. Shock your senses with menthol. The really crucial point here is that cooling agents and menthols don't just rely on your standard taste buds or those tired olfactory nerves. They actually activate physical thermoreceptors in your mouth and nasal passages. They create this physical sensation of coldness that completely bypasses olfactory fatigue and effectively reboots your entire palate. It's a real game changer.
You can also treat this like a pro. Think about professional wine tasters, tea experts, and perfumers. They use specific items to cleanse their palates between samples, and you can absolutely do the same. Inhaling the deep, earthy scent of dry coffee beans acts as a hard reset for your nasal receptors. Meanwhile, sucking on a lemon wedge or eating a piece of pickled ginger, the kind you get with sushi, will stimulate rapid saliva production and literally wash your tongue clean.
Finally, let's look at some lifestyle resets. Because PG and VG are actively pulling moisture right out of your tissues, you've got to drastically increase your water intake. Just drink tons of water. You also need to practice rigorous oral hygiene. Grab a tongue scraper to remove that microscopic film of dead cells and e-liquid residue that's physically blocking your taste buds. It makes a huge difference. Also, try cutting back on diuretics like coffee and alcohol, which just make dry mouth worse. And if you are still smoking traditional cigarettes on the side, commit to quitting entirely so your tissues can actually heal up.
Section 6. When to see a doctor. This is where we look for actual medical red flags.
14. That is the magic number here. Remember earlier when we talked about how your taste buds are on a continuous regeneration cycle, dying and regrowing every 10 to 14 days? Well, if you have tried all of our palate cleansers, hydration techniques, and flavor switches, and your symptoms last longer than 2 weeks, or you completely lose the ability to taste regular food, it's time to see a doctor. Persistent loss of taste can actually be a sign of serious vitamin B12 or zinc deficiencies, dental infections, or even neurological conditions that really need professional medical attention.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. Is your vape actually losing its flavor, or is your incredibly complex brain just playing tricks on you to protect you from sensory overload? It's pretty amazing to realize how powerful the mind-body connection truly is. So the next time your favorite flavor just goes blank, don't panic. Stay heavily hydrated, switch up your routines, use a professional palate cleanser, and most importantly, respect the fascinating science of your own senses. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.